CLARENCE, NY, February 13, 2009, NTSB Board member Steve Chealander, 2nd L, and State Trooper Commander Chris Cummings, 4th L talk at press conference with reporters about plane crash of Continental, Colgan Flight 3407. The plane crashed during the night of February 12 and exploded when it hit a home, killing all on board and one in the house. Photo by John Normile, Getty Images. Getty Steve Chealander had just gone to sleep on the night of February 12, 2009, when his phone rang. As a board member on the GO team for the National Transportation Safety Board, he knew the call was bad news. An airplane had gone down near Buffalo, New York, with 49 people on board. First responders said there were no survivors. "We arrived on the scene early the next morning, with the wreckage still burning," said Chealander, a former Air Force Thunderbird pilot and experienced airline captain. The tail of the aircraft, where the black boxes were, was almost buried in the basement of the home the aircraft struck as it crashed, he said. An investigator put on protective gear and climbed into the wreckage, and by that afternoon the black boxes were on their way to Washington, D.C., to be analyzed. "We got the information from the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder the very next day," Chealander recalled. "I remember laying out this piece of paper with the FDR data that looked kind of like an E. You could see the pitch and roll and control column movements, and the lead investigator and I looked at each other and said, 'Oh my gosh, this guy pitched up.'" In the minutes before the crash, the aircraft had accumulated ice on the wings and had slowed dangerously. As the aircraft approached a stall due to the high nose position and resulting slow speed, the captain continued to pull back on the control column, instead of pushing forward to lower the nose and decrease the angle of attack. Just a day after the accident, Chealander said, "We knew it happened. What the NTSB didn't know was why. Why did the captain pull back on the controls when he should have pushed forward? Why did the first officer retract the landing gear instead of pushing the control column forward? What was their training like? Were they fatigued? How did they communicate in the cockpit? What kind of experience did they have? How well did they seem to understand what was going on?" To find these answers, investigators had to look beyond the black boxes. How they unraveled the causes of the crash of Colgan Air offers insight into how the investigations are being conducted into the crashes of Lion Air 610 and Ethiopian Airlines 302. Major accident investigations include teams of specialists who look at particular aspects of the accident. The maintenance group reviews records of the design, certification, manufacturing, and maintenance of the aircraft, while the air traffic control group looks at issues involving the interaction between the aircraft and the air traffic controllers. The operations group is responsible for investigating the conduct of the flight, including information on the specific flight, but also on the air carrier, its training program, resources, and processes. Finally, the Human Performance Group gathers and analyzes information on the individuals involved, including their activities in the days leading up to the accident, their training, work history, and medical fitness, and also information on the company, including its culture and policies. Accidents in complex systems like aviation are rarely traced to a single smoking gun, so even when the events leading up to an accident are known, the investigation continues. In most cases, the answers are far more nuanced than they seem at first. When you read an accident report, Chealander explained, you will see the probable cause, which may be a paragraph or two, but then you will also see findings and conclusions, a whole list of them, all the causal factors that contributed to the accident. In aviation we call it the Swiss cheese model of accident causation. There are protections, which are like the cheese, but there are also holes in those protections, and sometimes all those holes line up. So if you want to fix the problem, you have to understand where all the holes were, not just the one closest to the accident. In the Colgan Air investigation, the operations and human performance groups were tasked with understanding why the captain pulled back on the control column instead of pushing forward, and why the first officer did not intervene. Even this question did not have a simple answer. The captain seemed startled and confused by what was happening, Chealander recalled. He had struggled in training, failing several check rides, though he eventually trained to proficiency. The first officer, who had very little experience in the type of weather conditions the flight was operating in, was busy with other tasks, and did not understand that the aircraft was approaching a stall. The NTSB found that the probable cause of the crash was the captain's improper response to the stall warning, but they also published 46 findings associated with the crash, including that the aircraft did not have a low-speed cue or advanced warning for impending stall, the airline did not promote effective monitoring strategies by the pilot not flying, and the FAA's oversight was not sufficient for rapidly growing air carriers. The black boxes pointed the way, but it took the combined efforts of the investigative team to fully explain the accident, and to make sure it wouldn't happen again. "We knew it happened in one day," Chealander said. "Understanding why it happened took a year.